the afternoon. So hopefully everybody's going to kind of come winding back with some of their friends. I'm Howard Wilson. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer with PagerDuty, and people normally ask me, well, what does Chief Commercial Officer mean? It means that your boss can give you anything to do at any time, and you just take on those new responsibilities and you run with it. But I look after our customer operations at PagerDuty, which is all our post-sales functions, so customer support, customer success, our services and training business, and then I'm also our financial officer, so I look after the functions that help us scale and run an effective business, so things like IT and finance and accounting and all those exciting things. So I'm delighted to be here. I've always had an aspiration to be a game show host, and I just haven't had the opportunity. But today is my moment, right? So Carrie has given me the list of the 15 winners. Drum roll, please. There we go. And these are the 15 winners who have unpronounceable names, but they're not all. So folks, I have the winning tickets here, but Carrie's actually going to take care of them for me. So I have Balaraju Nishani, Benjamin Kam, Brad McCoy, Darius Pechek, Dave Chapman, Dippin Huel, Haven So, Jake L. Helu, I might have got that wrong, Jake, from Harvey Norman, James Tracy, James Howson, Janet Zong, Jason Raynar, Jas Singh, Lewis Lepper, Makara Lim. So, did I get that right? No idea. Okay, well there you go, folks. Those are the names. We have the tickets here for you. It's the pre-registration for our event, PagerDuty Summit in San Francisco. It's worth $1,500, each of these, and we'd love to see you in San Francisco. Okay, and there's the list, sorry. Okay, so onto our panel. So I'm really excited. We have Jeremy here from Avoca. He's the Global VP of Cloud Services for Avoca, and we'll get to hear a little bit about that. We have Abdullah Siddiqui, who's joined us from, flown in from Auckland. He's from Xero. And Javier Molina, who is from REA Group, who's flown in from Melbourne. Right, okay, well good. So we have, we thought it would be good to get a collection of folks together who could talk a bit about their experience and share with you some of their tips and their thoughts around doing DevOps transformation or IT ops transformation, or making some of those moves to being a better digital, real-time organization. When we think about, one of the core tenets of DevOps is really around learning, right? The whole concept behind that terribly named post-mortem is that you don't make the same mistakes again. And so part of the idea behind this session was for us to get an opportunity to spend time with some folks today who are doing some unusual things and who have had to deal with some of the challenges of being part of a movement, an initiative, or a change within their own businesses, and who've learned along the way. And so I'm delighted that we can have these folks here, and they can, at this point in time, they'll share some of their thoughts, but afterwards, of course, at our networking reception, you can also track them down and ask them additional questions. So just for a little bit of context, we might just start and have everyone just give us a little bit of the background of who they are, what they do, and the company that they represent. So Javier, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Can you hear me well? I'm Javier. I lead platform and architecture at REA Group. Probably most of you don't know us from that name, but probably if I say we run realestate.com with you, it's a more familiar name. We are headquartered in Melbourne, but we also have operations in 7 different countries across Southeast Asia. And we're a digital media business specialized in property. And we want to change how the world experiences property. It's a big task for all of us. All my teams are tasked to build and run systems for the rest of the company. And we have been going through a massive growth over the last 6 years, to a point where we have now more than 50 different teams that are building things concurrently. So our easy task is to help them all be more efficient.
Right, thanks Javier. Abdullah from Xero.
Sure, hey guys, my name is Abdullah. So I am from Xero. Xero is a cloud accounting platform that specifically targets small to medium-sized businesses. We also have a large range of products that are targeted towards bookkeepers and accountants. So Xero started off as like a homegrown Kiwi startup, and we've kind of grown in the last 10 years about to be a really global business. We've kind of gone about 2,200 employees globally now. We've kind of hit the million customer mark, working on that second million right now. So my role at Xero is a site reliability engineer, which is somewhat of a mixture of a developer and a systems engineer. At Xero, we kind of take the E-Series purpose to be to empower our product teams to be able to own their own products in production. So we, as a team, will define the tools, we'll create the tools, we'll define the practices and the processes that allow teams to do that. So we kind of evangelize the E-Series gospel throughout the company. And as a goal, we try to ensure that teams can build reliability into their products. And yeah.
Good. Well, thanks for that introduction, Abdullah. And Jeremy.
Hello, my name's Jeremy. I'm VP of Cloud Services at Voca Technology. Voca is a company that's developed a transaction platform, specifically a digital transaction platform, that streamlines the onboarding and sales process for banking applications. So we don't work in the core banking product, we work as the acquisition side of it, and my team and I deliver a platform which gives that software as a service to enable banks to have a digital experience for their customer acquisitions.
Thanks very much, Jeremy. So maybe, Abdullah, I'd like to, you spoke a little bit about the fact that you have to support multiple teams in your role. Your group is central to providing the tools that the team requires. And I remember when we spoke earlier, you spoke about this concept of on-call, or code as on-call, or on-call as code. And I'm interested kind of what that means and how you've had to think about things at Xero.
Yeah, sure. So we at Xero have kind of devised an on-call as code system by taking advantage of the rich set of APIs that PagerDuty offers us. So we kind of wanted to, by way of empowering our product team to own the system in production by getting them on call. So we needed to make that process easy, and in order to kind of, with Xero growing and scaling so much, we need to be able to react to all the different product changes. And oftentimes, in a perfect world, every product change would be perfect, nothing ever goes wrong, but that's just not what happens, and there's always going to be issues that come up. So we wanted to be able to react quickly and ensure that the correct engineer or developer can take ownership of an alert and do something about it. So we defined a on-call as code system, which we call PagerDuty configs inside our organization. So through configuration files, simple YAML files, we allow product teams to own their own on-call configuration, define their own installation policies, define their own schedules, define the way that they want to be alerted, their own integrations and all that. So it's often just a matter of onboarding even within the organization that when a new developer comes into a product and they'll add themselves into the PagerDuty configs, so it makes it easy because it's just like submitting a normal pull request. We can validate it, lint it, it gets code reviewed and then goes on to a system by someone in our team. So by doing that, we effectively allow the product teams to have the power to define the way they manage their own call. And by reacting quicker, we kind of limit the blast radius of issues that come up. The right engineer is engaged early on when things do go wrong, and that's how we kind of ensure that we ensure the stability of our platform. Yeah.
And I think that's interesting because it ties into a number of the key concepts around empowerment and also then using the tools in a way that is effective. And I think just creating like a structure around that has meant that it helps drive the adoption. I know you've done some work as well around chatbot integration, right? You want to tell us a little bit about that?
So a key to any E-Series role is to ensure incident management response is controlled. So at Xero, we defined a pretty rigid incident management response framework, but we needed a better platform interface to take that to product teams. So we found that building a chatbot tool, which we call Multivac in our organization, was a really useful interface. So, incident response tends to be quite finicky, and we have, we wanted to give teams the right level of guidance and control, so they can kind of take ownership of their own incidents and run them with confidence. So our chatbot will have context-sensitive help to start when you go through progressing through an incident. It wraps all the framework that we've already defined. It'll tell you, through helpful checklists that change as the incident progresses. Once you've said severity, once you've said a product maybe, once you've done certain things. It'll help you build the right responder team. So communications are key as well in any incident, as I'm sure most of you guys would know. So we can use our chatbot to page teams, to check who's on call, using PagerDuty of course, and we can form the right responder group effectively because we need to be able to ensure that the right engineers are in play to respond to the kind of incident that it is. So our chatbot can do that for us. On top of that, so our chatbot helps us define who an incident commander is. So that'll be the person that's kind of leading the technical response, as well as for some of the more higher severity incidents, there'll also be a communications lead defined. And that's the person that's generally going to be, if there is the need to interface to customers or update our status page. And maybe if it's a really high severity incident, certain communications will go out to people in the social media teams and leadership just across the board. Multi-bag bot will also help us kind of discover issues because we've got a whole bunch of API integration set up. We can get data out of AWS, we can get data out of monitoring systems, so Zaharov-Reutt, all that. So we can check which software releases have gone out. We can check what changes have happened. And
sounds pretty comprehensive.
Yeah.
It's a good piece of use of technology and tooling to again help people do their jobs more effectively and change the way that they work. And I think that's really good. So thanks for sharing that with folks. And I'm sure that we'll probably have a few interested parties to hear how you've actually accomplished some of that. So thanks, Abdullah. Maybe Jeremy, a question for you. I know that you before joining Avoca, you'd actually had worked with another company. You've been with Avoca 3 or 4 months now. But your previous experience, you gained a whole lot of learnings around DevOps best practices and incident management. How has that sort of framed your thinking? What's the context for you at Avoca?
It's a good question. So previously at Fairfax, and we had to essentially retrofit PagerDuty to the situation with our infrastructure. We had on-prem, we had a half-embraced DevOps culture, and then we were trying to tackle the idea of containers going forward. We were lacking PIR processes, we were lacking event intelligence that would correlate alarms. I think at one stage we had 300 alarms being generated a week, and not many people knew why they were getting out of bed. We had work-life balance that was completely destroyed. We had engineers throwing in the towel and saying, I don't want to be on call. And so we had to, look at that in the most positive light we can, which is it's got to change. So after implementing PagerDuty there for near 3 years and rebuilding the incident management process, the opportunity of Avoca came along to take on the VP role. And when I came to Avoca, they're very much a startup. And we're now looking at putting the plank across and going into enterprise. So a lot of these processes hadn't been in place. They have teams deployed in the UK, they have teams deployed in Europe, teams deployed in the US. So one of the immediate things that I took out of the learnings was, well, we can leverage PagerDuty's scheduling ability, basically taking all your telemetries and pumping them into the correct service and getting it to the correct team, so the level of response is presented to that alarm, was something that was a very quick win to do within the first couple of weeks. So we immediately spun up a project around having a look at what telemetry we have and actually getting that into a service that can be correlated against the correct alarm and given to the right thing. The work-life balance was immediately delivered. We had a situation where we had a call center basically referencing a spreadsheet of on-call people, and it was 1, 2, 3. If they didn't answer, 1, 2, 3. So we replaced that with eCall features, and we replaced that with a more finely tuned roster that had less people on call but delivering the same results. So instantly we were able to give back a work-life balance to a team that was already fairly well stretched. Now going forward, we're looking at how to leverage better incident management, having a better PIR process so that when we do get an alarm, we're actually getting to that resolution and then getting it into the right queue, bump to the top in that sprint so it actually gets resolved. And all this learning came out of having to pretty much go to war with Fairfax and their current system that they had in place.
Well, it's great to see how you've been able to sort of learn from that experience and apply it in a new context. And you've now created a fairly useful framework, I think, that's centered around PagerDuty, which of course we're glad to hear. But I think it speaks to those practices. One, of being able to consider the people who are on call, your awareness of the need for that sort of work-life balance, I think is important. And I think a lot of people are punished unnecessarily because of a poor set of processes, using the wrong systems, because there is a better way. So glad to hear how you've been able to address that. Kali, I was interested to hear from an REA group perspective. I know that there's been a DevOps transformation there, very much the culture of build it, ship it, own it. we spoke previously around the multiplier effect. You maybe want to tell folks what that means for you.
Sure. When I reflect back in our journey, and I joined the business a while ago, in 2012, we're thinking, how are we going to set up the business in a way that it can scale to the level that we needed at that point in time. And we had the luxury of bringing Bernard Vogels in the office, and he talked about how they were setting up Amazon.com at the time, and how he was applying all the lessons from that journey into building AWS. We picked up a lot of the ideas from there, and we started thinking about how can we have independent teams that can deliver by themselves and not have dependency to those central teams. We want to scale in a way that we can keep adding teams that can work independently and not have to depend on that central system. And well, we are all aware of the analogy of the two pizza teams, so we took that on board and started to create models around that and to create the opportunity to grow in that way. And that has taken us a long way. So they brought it back, all the responsibility around operations and also security, back to those teams. So you are end-to-end responsible for the services. You build it, you own it, and we also add it, you pay for it. So like whatever is spent in AWS, you're going to pay for it. So we are wanting to have that end-to-end responsibility with the teams, and we achieved that. And over years, that has been really successful. And we see ourselves at a point where we have different 50 teams that are tripping over the same and same problems again. So it's really difficult for them to build something quickly so they can go to market and they can extract all the lessons they can and find if there's a market ready in there. We're kind of constantly trying to go to the sides of the property market and find new places where we can continue growing. And that idea of force multipliers is about reducing the friction that those teams have to build things. That what are those common elements that everybody's trying to solve once and again and make it really easy for them to have a solution that is ready to go whenever they hit it. A difference to many other platform approaches that try to invent the future, we try to figure out what are the problems that those teams already have. Because we know that there's a market there, we know that there are developers that are feeling the pain, and then we extract those and we create a product offering that is really compelling and that has that problem solved for many different teams. I really like the idea of, there was a fallacy about the 10x developer. Have you ever heard about the 10x developer? It's a developer that can type and can produce code 10 times faster than any other developer. I don't think that thing exists. I think that the 10x engineer, it can only go two ways. One is someone that raises 10 people around them to be able to do more work and to do better work around them, or is able to provide items or is able to provide technology that can be used for 10 people around them so they don't have to solve the problem. And some of the problems that everybody is facing is things like authentication and user management. All of the lower level infrastructure problems, how do we do deployments? It's a running joke in the business at some point. If your systems engineer at REA, you will probably have invented your own deployment mechanism at this stage. Tens of different ways of doing that. So the idea is to extract those lessons from those people that have already tried to build something, find a solution that works for them and retrofit it back. And that's the idea behind the force multiplier.
No, that's great, Javier. And some of your observations there resonate with some of the discussions I've had with some of our other customers who've also found that as they build these teams that are very effective teams that operate relatively independently with high degrees of empowerment and choice, there does come a point where you actually need to step back and have a look at, well, are you in fact like reinventing the wheel in each of those teams, and how do you then sort of try and harness some of the common principles, not through an autocratic view around, oh, you've got to now standardize and everything, but rather about how do you collectively find those seeds of things that you can actually use more effectively across the team. So thanks for sharing that thought. We wanted this to focus very much around, and those experiences have been great, thank you for sharing that with us. If you had to think about maybe one item from your experience that you'd like to share with folks in terms of the journey that you've gone through, what would that be? Maybe, Jeremy, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, I think the biggest, PIR is a great exercise, but a PIR that doesn't actually deliver the actions to the team that needs to carry them out is a failed PIR. I think one of the most valuable things we did at Fairfax and are starting to do at Avoca is to run a simplified PIR process where you take a set of actions away, it goes into the correct Jira queue and gets bumped to the top of the sprint. The second we started doing that sort of thing, we saw problems stop. We saw learnings happen, we saw improvements go down across the board. And I think that is a fundamental thing missing from a lot of the conversations I have with people about PIRs. You know, the results of those PIRs sometimes flutter to the bottom and they never get done, and then guess what, a month later you're probably doing the same PIR again for the same reason. You know, keep it simple, but make sure those actions are prioritized. There's business value in those actions. So that would be my one tip for today.
Okay, cool, thank you. Abdullah?
Yeah, sure. So for us, we've kind of seen a huge benefit in integrating our chatbot again, and we mentioned it again, to the way we do post-mortems, where actually a colleague of mine calls it a post-resurrection. It's obviously the system's back alive now. Yeah, so we collect a whole set of data throughout an incident, and you know, stuff like the duration, severity, the status logs, and the kind of protocol it is. Using all that data, we kind of populate a template of a post-mortem that can then be used to, you know, find out the right kind of discovery that needs to happen after, you know, the dust is settled, and ensure that the right, like once again, like the right items of work is prioritized, you know, reducing the technical debt. And you know, over time we've found that we analyze the data we get out of our post-mortems, and we find trends of things that are quite common. And you know, every product should be doing these things. And you know, when we go back to teams and say, you know, advise them on how to build reliability into their products, we've already found a theme that's come out of the way we do post-mortems, right. And we can apply that, you know, to existing teams and new teams that come aboard too.
Yeah, and I think, you know, post-mortems are still underutilized, right? I've seen in chatting to a number of folks, you know, around the industry that these are often opportunities for you to prevent going through pain again, and we don't always invest that effort in terms of understanding what actually went wrong and then making the change. Sometimes you have a service that's a bad service that's faulty. If you never fix that service, it's going to keep on, you know, creating problems for you. And so it's an important step in terms of closing that deal. Yeah, so thanks for that, Abdullah. And Javier, your final thought on what you...
I'm struggling with that one, so I'm about to give you three. I already mentioned them. I think one of them is about redefining your hero culture, and it's about how do you create those force multipliers, or it's around about who is a hero in an organization, is who is able to create those multipliers. The second one is the all the responsibility back to the team. So you're giving them autonomy, they have to have the responsibility over that. The last one is more about our one practical thing that we did that radically changed the life of our engineers on night shifts, and that's around burnout, which we see a lot around the business. And it was redefine our alerting to follow our SLAs or SLOs. So if you have an alerting system that is not going to impact your SLA, you never alert on it, especially during nighttime. Someone can come in the morning and fix that, but it's going to impact your SLA, then you will alert over it. We have an engineer that went and redefined all our alerting, went to every single product manager and talk about what are the right SLOs. And then once after that conversation, went and retrofitted all the alerting systems and changed them to reflect that. And suddenly it all went quiet and nothing broke.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you. Some good good advice there. So I'm sure folks, you appreciated our panel sharing their thoughts with you today. Some good pointers there for us to think about in each of our organizations as we move forward down a path, whether it's an evolution or a transformation, in order to be able to do things better. So thank you very much to everyone for joining us this morning. So one of the things that Abdullah referred to in his discussion was around their incident command process, and we have Abhijit, who you met earlier, who's not going to be doing any singing or dancing, but he is going to be talking to us about incident management.
All right, thank you, Howard. I'm back.
Are these pointed?
Great. So we talked a lot about alerts, we talked a lot about incidents, and we learned some great nuggets from Jeremy, from Abdullah, and from Javier. What I'm going to talk really about is incident response. And we touched on some incident response best practices initially during the keynote, but what we have done at PagerDuty is built out an entire university around how you can do incident response more effectively within your organization. Really, since PagerDuty has had the privilege of having a knowledge share of 10,000, across 10,000 customers of how they deal with incidents, we have been able to develop a template as to what is the most efficient way of doing the response. These 45 minutes that I'm going to be covering, they're majority slides, but really it's a very small subset of what we do in the university that involves hands-on training. And as you heard Jonathan speak earlier about PagerDuty Summit in September, we have an entire day around how you can learn the best practices of modern incident response from some of the forward-thinking organizations around the world and really learn from the lessons that they have learned themselves. So there's a whole day of this with better speakers and more charming content than me in San Francisco in September, but I'll certainly try to do justice to them today. So let's get through the basics, right? I mean, we all know this. What do we need for managing an incident? You can cheat. You need an organized approach, right? Many times we think we are organized around an incident, and there is usually chaos built in. We write documentation, we write processes down, we try to formalize how people are going to engage, but an incident is a very stressful situation. It involves emotions, it involves people, and the idea is if you don't have an organized approach to begin with, and we'll touch on what an organized approach is, it can lead to chaos. What is the goal of an incident, or what are you trying to do with an organized approach to deal with an incident? Really the goal, and we have heard this over and over again, is not to resolve the incident, right? It's to recover that particular service. It's to ensure that the customer that's actually experiencing this impact, they are no longer experiencing that negative experience. Right? The idea is that you have recovered the service for the end customer, but you continue to resolve it internally. So the goal should be really to limit the damage, right? And you want to do it in such a way that reduces the cost of the incident, not only, and the cost doesn't have to be hard dollars, right? It can be in terms of people's burnout and productivity, one of the points Javier mentioned. Now, another thing that some of our customers, or many of our customers mention is you need to define an incident. What is an incident? An incident definition permeates across different verticals and different functions, but typically an incident definition would be an unplanned disruption, right? An unplanned issue that is negatively affecting a customer's ability to use your product or the product. But we learned at PagerDuty, after having been involved in incident response for close to 10 years, internally and for our customers, is an incident is something that requires coordination across multiple teams, right? Across different subject matter experts, right? It's just not, a single team is dealing with an incident. Usually an incident will be permeating or will require wide coverage. And once you've determined what an incident is, the best way to classify an incident is to have severity levels, right? And every organization has severity levels in place. You'll have SEV 5, SEV 3, but the major incident really is classified as a SEV 2 and SEV 1. Right? And you may say, we know this, thank you so much, but as I mentioned, we're just covering the basics. Now, let's get into some of the best practices. One of the things, 6 years ago, at PagerDuty, we had a major incident. In fact, it reached our threshold of a SEV 1, and the problem was that we didn't detect that incident for 6 hours. And it took us 20 hours after that, once we detected that issue, to resolve it. And it took us, the reason it took us 20 hours was because we had to go through that command and control way of asking the leader to make a very sort of grave decision about dropping the customer events, right? And we learned from that, hey, we have all this telemetry in place, we have these alerts coming in, and just because different teams or different individuals are dealing with those alerts doesn't mean that if they think that this is a higher level incident or this is an incident that impacts different teams, that they cannot trigger an incident. So from there on, even an intern at PagerDuty can actually trigger an incident. And you may think, oh, now we have college graduates coming into an organization that supports 300,000 users on the platform and processes 9 billion events yearly to trigger an incident. There have been only 2 instances of an intern having triggered an incident incorrectly, and that proved to be a practice for us to actually hone in on incident response, and I'll talk about that as well. So one of the best practices, and we've seen this across multiple organizations, Netflix does this as well as Twilio, is let anybody trigger an incident. So how would you do that within Slack? I mean, it doesn't really matter what that particular way is, but what we have done at PagerDuty is we have built out Slack bots, and just by calling this particular command IC page, the incident command team gets paged about the fact that, hey, we think that there is an incident. Please come in and coordinate this incident. We'll talk about the incident coordination as well in just a moment. Now, incident is wartime, right? Incident is battle. But there's 80% of the time, hopefully, we are in peacetime, right? We're not dealing with incidents. And organizations may not be that militaristic, and so they may say there's an emergency and then there's something normal. Or you could go not okay or okay, right? But the idea is that the more you sweat in practice, the less you'll bleed in war, right? And so the idea is that when it's not okay, when it's not emergency, you want to be able to build out those set of practices around how an incident command needs to be set up, right? Who will run this incident? Who can trigger an incident, right? And so that's where the organized approach comes into play, and that's what we'll touch on moving forward. Now, this incident response and the process that I'm outlining today, we didn't come up with on our own. Our emergency our emergency teams that deal with natural disasters, even our fire department, they run this process on a daily basis. All we have done is, through engaging with our customers and also our own experience, we have distilled part of this process that these emergency teams who deal with lives on a daily basis, they distilled that and made it relevant for our daily IT operations. So all the tenets that I'll be speaking to today as to how you can run a major incident effectively is actually a result of our real-life heroes. And this is coming from our response process that we train on during the university. Is directly influenced by FEMA, which is the Federal Federal Disaster Management organization within the U.S. government, but they all exchange ideas with the Australian government as well as the Canadian. I mean, all around the world they have the basic. All right, so how do you have an organized approach to dealing with an incident? There are specific roles that you need to have assigned in order to deal with that incident. You saw that in that Slack view where we said, oh, an intern can trigger an incident as well, and they were running a command called IC page. IC for short is incident commander, right? And that incident commander is the highest authority in that incident. This is directly matches to the role of the fire supervisor, who is usually conducting a response to a forest fire or a mass fire that affects multiple neighborhoods. Now, usually an incident commander will have a deputy as well. the idea is that if the incident commander is missing something, the deputy will let them know about that. And there's usually a scribe who's scribing. And scribe doesn't have to be writing detailed notes about what's going on with the incident, but they need to be there to capture some of the most key nuggets. Now that is the command. That is your incident command. But as part of the incident response, there are other roles in place as well that will help you in communication, not only internally, but externally to your customers. And those roles need to be defined. In many organizations, the customer support team plays the role of business communicators or internal or liaisons between internal communications as well. But at PagerDuty, what we have done is actually have two different roles based on the severity of the incident. Because step one, we'll usually say, hey, a customer support engineer will actually, or somebody from senior support engineer will actually push out customer communication. But also for executive and account management teams, we'll have an internal communicator as well, just to craft that specific message for those people who understand. In some cases, these liaisons could be the same role, same person as well. Right? And then there are the subject matter experts, the actual resolver teams. Right? You must have seen this, and we have seen this at many organizations as we work with them, is when an incident happens, they will maybe email or page 200 different people at the same time, or 100 different people. That woke everyone up. 100 different people at the same time, right? Without any defined roles here. Who is getting notified? Why are they getting notified? They're being pulled into an incident just because they should be there, and in case a particular service has a dependency on their set of services, then they should be there to help fix that in case they're called upon. It really hurts people's productivity because, of course, they're being pulled into something that may not be relevant to them, but also at the same time, there is no cohesive structure around how that incident is being launched. So, incident commander, we got the roles here. Now, an incident commander orchestrates the entire team in order to run an efficient process. This particular incident commander is the go-to person, right? And many times we'll find that people are not empowered in organizations to make these decisions, but the best practice is to empower those incident commanders to make those grave business decisions as well if needed. Because at the end of the day, everybody's trying to solve a problem. So let's talk more about the incident commander, right? Mentioned it multiple times, let's go into it. They're the single source of reference. They are the highest authority. So at PagerDuty, I can actually walk around. At PagerDuty, so at PagerDuty, the incident commander has higher authority than the CEO as well. So we had an instance when, I'd love to tell this when she's here, or when our CEO had just started at PagerDuty 2 years ago. We had an incident that wasn't affecting customers at all, but we still raised the severity of it. And she came into the room, the actual bridge, and she said, please resolve this incident within 10 minutes. Right. So the incident commander said, do you want to take command? She said, no, but I want to get this resolved. Said, well, it's not helping the team to resolve this incident in a fast and efficient way. We have our own organized approach to do this. Please, any comments not relevant to the incident, please not say them. Now, the only way an incident commander could say that was if there was executive buy-in, right? And the fact that our CEO was new and she had not known about it, she made that mistake, but then other executives quickly stepped in and said, yes, please let the incident commander or the incident commander on its own way. I wish she was here, then she would acknowledge and say, yes, he's right. But the idea is that you do need executive buy-in for this, but it's a good practice, right? We'll talk about this. Executive swoop happens. Sales will put a lot of pressure on the technical teams to get something done quickly. Customers will be asking the status on issues. That is part of the communication, but it's not relevant to the resolution itself. An incident commander is not a resolver. They are a coordinator, they are a delegator. So just to go back to a fire supervisor, right? There is a saying in the fire department, if you find a fire supervisor with a white hat holding a wrench, take that wrench and hit them on their head, right? The idea is that the supervisor or the commander should only be looking at the whole landscape of how the response is ongoing. They're not supposed to go jump in and resolve the issue as well, right? And it takes a cultural change because the idea is that many times an incident commander could be that senior developer or could be that senior SRE who knows that service really well. They know all the nitty-gritties or the legacy code that's affecting that particular service, and they'll feel the need to jump in, but they shouldn't. It's not helping the team. They can, of course, point out areas where it can be helped, but there's a subject matter expert who's going to be looking at it at that point of time. So, we talked about the incident command, we talked about the roles. Let's walk through an actual incident and see how these roles will engage with each other, and we'll do so till resolution. Now, before I do that, can someone please keep time of where I'm at to where I end up? Okay. When we have an incident, don't panic. Very easy to say, but we all panic. Right? It's in our DNA. We get that flight and fight response, but we all know this, right? It's a best practice that we don't have to really say, but don't panic. So I'm going to be playing a persona, not me, but we're going to use a real life scenario where we have somebody called Rich, and he's going to be the incident commander. So as soon as a conference bridge is set up for a particular incident, or if you're running that incident within a Slack channel, the best practice is the incident commander announces that, hey, I'm Rich, I'm the incident commander. They introduce themselves. Say incident commander, don't say, I am IC, right? Or don't say this, let's get the IC on the RC and get a DLT for all this SMEs, right? Do not use acronyms, especially on an incident. You may have, of course, new resolvers on that bridge, or people may not even know what's that, what those acronyms mean. But you need to be clear and concise. The reason you're introducing yourself on an incident as an incident commander is to take authority. You're saying, I am the incident commander, I'll be running this incident, nobody will object to that, right? People won't be wondering, oh, who should I, sort of defer to? No. They know who. The next thing that incident commander, and this is a real life incident call that we have put these slides from at PagerDuty. But we heard this being run with other customers as well. But the next thing that the incident commander needs to do is assess the situation. So what's wrong? What actions can we take? What are the risks involved in taking certain actions? Right? They usually will make a decision. If you give individuals authority on running an incident, the idea is that there'll be a lot of different data points that they will be exposed to, and sometimes analysis paralysis can happen. Empower them to make a decision. If it's wrong, you can always switch back. You will learn it and you will avoid it in the future, but you need to make a decision. Many times, especially in incidents, we defer to the highest authority to make that decision, right? And that's where the command and control comes in. If there's executive buy-in already, and if we assign the incident commander to play that sole authority, we won't run into those issues. Gain consensus. Now there's a way to gain consensus as well. Do you agree this background is blue? Do you agree? Do you agree? Now if I go to every single person and start asking if the background is blue, you all will say yes. Some of you may say no, or may want to say no, but you will never say no because you might think, no, I see this as green, it could be blue. Right? So the best question to ask in these scenarios to gain quick consensus is, are there strong objections? I mean, I think this question applies to everything in our life, right? But from an incident response perspective, this question is a key one. Are there any strong Objections. If nobody has a strong objection, if they're just confused, they may not raise it at that point on that call. Hearing none, let's proceed. Are there any strong objections? If you don't remember anything from the presentation, please remember this line, because this will help you tremendously. So, remember I asked, can someone keep time from when I started to where I'm at right now? Who did? 7 minutes.
3.5, just under 4 minutes.
There lies another problem, right? I said, can someone keep time? We got 7 minutes to 3.5 minutes, like a spread of close to 100%, right, of discrepancy there. Can someone is the problem. Ask, assign tasks to specific people. If I had said, Natalie, can you please keep time from where I'm at right now to where I will be until I ask that question, you would have got the most accurate answer there as well, right? So the idea is, as you're working on tasks and assigning them to subject matter experts, specify the person, call them out, as well as get an acknowledgement about whether they've understood the task. Time box all those tasks as well, right? And get acknowledgement. Now, of course, you'll follow up. During this particular incident, this was a DNS issue that we ran into 2 years ago at PagerDuty, where one of the DNS providers went down and infected almost the entire internet until we moved. But we sort of, had redundant DNSs in place, and we recovered much faster than many of our peers. But the idea is that you need to time box those tasks, because at the end of the day, the resolution of the recovery of the service is the most key, right? And so if you're assigning a task, you're getting acknowledgement, get it in a particular time. Now, question would be how much, if they need more time. Well, if they need more time, they'll let you know. And always ask, how much more time do you need? That is the job of the incident commander. As you can see, they're acting the role of a leader, right? So it's really cyclical. It's ask for status, decide action, gain consensus, assign task, follow up on task completion. Now, if an incident commander was jumping in and fixing the problem, do you think they would be able to do this? Can someone? But tell me. But the idea is that no, they wouldn't be able to. There's no way they could be able to track this. Now, of course, as the tasks are being assigned in a cyclical way, the incident commander or the incident command as a whole is sizing up the problem. They're trying to stabilize it as well. That's also a cycle. You're updating the problem and you're trying to verify whether, or updating the solution, you're trying to verify if any of those updated solutions are working. We're really distilling an entire days of your university training into this 45-minute session, so that's why we're moving fast. But if you set up an incident command and you have an organized approach, you will never hear a responder say, ignore the IC, do what I say. Not even senior developers, not even senior engineers will ever say this, right? Because the incident commander is the sole authority. And usually, there will be people who, again, everyone's coming from a kind place, right? Everybody's coming from the right place. They want to help as much as possible. But if it disrupts the flow of the incident, that's the question. Do you wish to take command? Right? It works for the CEO, it can work for the developer as well. And usually the answer will be non-committal. So if you don't take anything from this presentation today, take this question. Do you wish to take command? So let's talk about executive swoop as well. We addressed this. At PagerDuty we call it executive swoop and poop, but we'll stick to executive swoop. And the idea is we want to avoid this executive swoop, right? You just spoke about this example. Let's try and resolve this in 10 minutes, please. We're in the middle of the incident. Please keep your comments until the end. There's actual words being spoken at an incident. Another example would be one of our other execs who had just joined PagerDuty did this. Can I get a spreadsheet of all affected customers right now? We can either get you the spreadsheet or we can fix the issue. The incident takes priority. It's another version of you wish to take command. Again, everyone's coming from the right place. Everyone's trying to help, right? But there's a fallacy in thinking that, there's a fallacy in thinking that when somebody's working on an incident and there is silence, that no progress is being made, right? Technical teams, resolver teams, they're working on their issue. They will. Another example would be, why are we calling this particular incident to us? Why are we assigning a particular severity to it, right? Again, that does not help the response to this incident itself, right? Trying to litigate severity during an incident doesn't help resolve the incident, right? Just call it step 1, step 2, step 3, move on. Right? You resolve it in 20 minutes, that just concludes your metric of resolving your step 2 in 20 minutes. But the idea is call it a severity for now to inform your future process. The best way to avoid executive swoop or stakeholder swoop is to notify stakeholders proactively. Right? We heard over and over again from Ladbrokes, from CabCharge, even from Avoca, and even from REA. They have a process of notifying stakeholders proactively and frequently. Right? If you have an organized approach to maintaining an incident, and you have an incident command built out like this, and you have automated that stakeholder notification process, you will do this. We spoke about the diligent responder. Again, the idea is sometimes people coming from the right place may try to say, no, we shouldn't be taking this thing, or taking this cause of, or this action, or we should be moving to that, or I think this is the issue, or pivot to that. The idea is that hero worship is great. As REA said, you have to have a hero culture where people enable other people to perform more effectively and grow into the role, or grow beyond the role they're in. But hero worship, as we see in Phoenix Project, how many of you have read the Phoenix Project? All of you. But if you haven't, if you haven't, it's a great book. It's a novel that actually describes a journey that organizations can take to be DevOps in a way. And then there is one persona called, and that person, he's the senior engineer, he can fix all the problems, right? And they just run him to the ground by working him on every issue. Now, many times, he also ends up being disruptive to the process because everybody expects that person to jump in, right? And also, he's very opinionated, so it actually affects the response rather than certain incidents as well. Now, do responders get tired? Absolutely. We all get tired. So, handovers are encouraged, right? Hand off your incidents. If you have an incident commander, if you have different roles assigned on an incident, people will know which role is being handed off from one individual to another. A deputy can become the incident commander, an incident commander can become the scribe, a scribe can then jump into being the subject matter expert. The idea is that if you have defined roles, people understand the expectations of that role. So one of the examples of here, this didn't actually happen, but we don't have incidents that run that long. But the idea is that everyone on the call be advised, I'm handing over command to someone else. Right? And then that person then announces that, yes, now I'm the incident commander. Right? Anti-patterns. What shouldn't we do, right? Regardless of how you structure your incident response process, what you shouldn't do. Getting everyone on the call. We just talked about that example of a company that used to have 200 engineers on the call. Regardless of whether it was a Sev 2 or a Sev 1, they would just get everybody in. Especially responders from their outsourcing company. It didn't help the outsourcer. The operations cost for the company went way high. They were charging by the hour of engagement on these incidents. Don't send too many too frequent status updates. This is really dependent on what kind of notifications you want to send to the stakeholders. But the idea is define what is frequent, what is not frequent. We touched on this early on. Many times, especially non-technical people who may be looking at an incident from a distance, they assume that silence means no progress. Right? No, people are working towards issues. Right? Everybody wants to do the job and go back to sleep. Right? So many times stakeholders assume that there is nothing happening. If the expectation is set from the beginning that we will notify you, we will let you know, these kinds of doubts will not creep in. And if you don't need anybody on the call at one point, tell them to leave the call. Don't force someone to be on the call just because they may be required at a certain point. Right? It's not helped anybody. Nike, for example, before they started using PagerDuty, they used to mandate that if you have been part of that incident, regardless of whether your work is done or not, you stay on, because you never know if the system that you have patched will have the same issue. Don't do that. They can always do it themselves. They don't do it. Being too focused on the problem in front of you. If you have an incident commander, the sole authority, sometimes they'll make these mistakes, right? But that's the idea. You learn from it, right? But the idea is if they have visibility into the entire landscape as to what's happening on a particular incident, they can avoid this issue. They won't be siloed into a particular, or they won't go into a rabbit hole either. And don't take on multiple roles. We touched on litigating policy or severities during an incident as well, and then being averse to process changes. And process changes, that's a very iterative thing that keeps changing at all times, but don't change the process of how you deal with an incident in the middle of the incident. Doesn't help anybody. And it won't happen either if you have a single incident commander who is making those decisions. Our incident is resolved. Finally, oh my God, you must be like, wow, this talk was longer than our incidents. But the idea is, now the incident is resolved. We heard this from so many customers today, right? Don't neglect the postmortem, or as Abdullah said, post-resurrection, right? Don't ignore that. And that's a best practice that we know. Creating the postmortem, we know that as well. We pick an owner. But this is one thing that we have seen in many organizations that doesn't happen. We hear this, but it doesn't happen in practice. Blameless postmortems, right? Don't blame the person, blame the situation. Something happened. Who did it, when, that's irrelevant. And review that postmortem process as well. Now, at PagerDuty, we do Failure Fridays. It's a take on the Chaos Monkey that Netflix does. Right? I mean, we have our own version of Chaos Monkey. We call it Chaos Cat. At some point, organizations will run out of animals to call their chaos engineering process, naming it. But the idea is we run this every week. Right? We check our notification pipeline, we check our events pipeline, we check our incident pipeline, all of the things that we experience on PagerDuty, on the UI, on the APIs, everything, we test it on a weekly basis. Right? We bring hosts down, we disrupt services intentionally, and we see if there are redundancies in place or not. That's what practice makes perfect. But even if you don't have that kind of automation in place, just having that incident command process in place will help you in dealing with these incidents more effectively. Now, all of what I said today has been outsourced as a documentation on response.pagerduty.com. We have taken it from the best firefighters, the best emergency disaster personnel. We have learned from them, and we have distilled it to include it as not only just the IT incidents process, but also we talk about how you can manage your security incidents, and soon enough we'll be talking about other areas of or functions within the business that can manage their own internal incidents as well, like marketing. And that's a snippet. It's a pretty well drafted. Talks about all the roles, how you can set up severity levels, and it doesn't matter whether you're a new organization just starting out or an existing organization. I think an existing organization that's trying to change the outlook of how incidents need to be dealt with will benefit a lot from some of the nuggets here. Right? But if you want to see the real deal, you can also go to the FEMA website and look at how they set up incident command. Right? Now, this is the global way of dealing with incident response. That's why, as California right now is dealing with forest fires, they could ask the Australian fire departments in Australia for help. And 100 firefighters from Australia just flew last week to California to help with the wildfires there. The only way all of these 500 people can, across different nations, can coordinate their efforts would be if they spoke a unified language, right? And they do. And it's not only about just fire rescues or natural disasters. It also comes in handy in community emergencies, right? When local community teams have come together to form their own response process. So if people are doing this to save lives, we can absolutely do this as well to improve customers' experience, our customers. So thank you so much. So as I mentioned, some key takeaways for you at the end. The idea is have an incident commander. It's one of the most critical roles. Are there any strong objections? I've started using that as part of my lexicon. So whenever my wife asks me, if I ask my wife, can I go for the movie? And I say, are there any strong objections? 50-50. And of course, assigning tasks to individuals and regularly setting handovers and incidents. All right, hope this was helpful. If you're interested in learning more, please join us in San Francisco. But if not, we're happy to do trainings there as well. Thank you so much. Have a good one. I think I'm supposed to announce as well. With big applause, Kris Fagan is going to be joining us for a partner panel.
So thank you everybody for sticking around. Obviously the last section of the day. Let's give it up for all the presenters that we've had before. Hopefully this has been a valuable day for you, and you'll be able to take a number of things back in terms of some of what Abhijit showed in terms of incident management best practice, or from some of the customer speakers that we've heard. So just a quick round of applause for them. As Abby said, my name is Kris Fagan. I look after the Channels and Alliance practice for PagerDuty for APJ. Throughout the course of the day today, you've seen how the PagerDuty platform for action delivers value to your enterprise across use cases. IT ops, DevOps, you heard about these two conflicting worlds, and we help bring those together in what we call hybrid ops, business operations, customer support, security operations, as well as operations that have to deal with the industrial Internet of Things. Now, central to our ability to be able to help deliver that value to you and you downstream to your customers are the signals that we actually receive from the more than 280 integrations from our tech alliance partners, the information and data that we exchange with ITSM tools and ChatOps tools, and the IP and the capability that many that are here today, many of our delivery and consulting partners bring to the table to help you on your DevOps journey. So, I'm joined on stage today by William Tsoi from Vibrato, Penny Ferris from Sherwell, Simon Campbell from Dynatrace, and Josh Richardson from SumoLogic. So let's start with you, William. Let's go ahead and tell us a little bit about Vibrato.
Yeah, sure. You want to hear me? Yeah. Okay. So my name is William. I'm from Vibrato as a principal consultant. So what Vibrato believes in is that people's lives should be made a little bit easier every day. And so the way we do that is via DevOps and automation. We're a consulting partner to PagerDuty as well as to some of the other tools and platforms with booths you see today. So what we do is, we come to customer sites such as yours. We come in there and look at your current people, processes, and tools. And then, we find ways to sort of optimize, your usage of these tools and these platforms, so that, your lives are made easier every day.
Penny.
Cheers, thank you.
Hi, I'm Penny Farrell. So I'm from Sharewell Software. So Sharewell is a market-leading IT service management solution, and Sharewell's been around for not too long in Australia now about 4 or 5 years, and we really focus on differentiating ourselves by having a completely codeless platform. So anything that you do in that environment, anything that you're going to do in the future, any integrations that you do are completely supportable moving forward for upgrades or service management. And we also really focus on automation throughout the business process. So integrating with partners like PagerDuty and the other ones that you have on stage to really get the best out of all the things in your environment to move forward quickly.
Thanks.
Hello everyone, my name's Campbell. I head up the partner and channel business for Dynatrace across Australia and New Zealand. And look, Dynatrace is really a company that we focus on helping our customers and partners across Asia Pacific really deliver perfect software experiences. And this is everywhere from helping them understand their customer base, how to interact with their service, but also deciphering and understanding the complexities of a modern environment. This is looking at all of your new stack type technologies, understanding the dependencies, and understanding how to measure the outcomes back to the business and back to the end user.
I'm Josh. I'm responsible for Sumo customers in the enterprise and also prospects and business development in Asia Pacific. So Sumo provide a secure, scalable machine data analytics service to allow customers to monitor and troubleshoot modern applications.
Fantastic. Well, when we get started, I know I could use a drink. I'm sure some of you could after sitting here with us all afternoon. So, first question, let's open up to the panel. What role do you think that modern incident response plays in helping you drive a competitive advantage for companies across the Asia-Pacific Japan region?
I might jump in on that one. I'll go first, or cap of the ring. I'd say it makes a huge difference, and when we work with customers, and we work with many customers that use both sort of our IT service management solution and PagerDuty, and really for us, it's all about speed. So speed of getting notified about it, speed of finding out the right person at the right time that notification needs to go to, speed of reporting it if you have compliance issues, being able to demonstrate that you know about that, and speed to resolve it. And by getting that information quickly and having a really robust integration to a good IT service management tool to find that information makes an enormous difference to the customers that we work with.
And to add to that, it's about doing more with less and reducing the amount of time spent on unplanned work and on things like incident management, which are inevitable, although by using data and getting all of the telemetry and obtaining actionable insight from the telemetry that modern applications emit on a second-by-second basis, you allow teams to get ahead of the curve when it comes to identifying incidents and then reducing the amount of time that they're actually spending on troubleshooting rather than delivering customer experience.
Thanks. How important is automation and event intelligence in collecting and organizing digital signals to help deliver a great customer experience? It looks like you wanted to jump in on that one.
I'll jump in on that one. The automation gets me started. So look, when we look at our customer base across Asia Pacific, and we talk about automation and we talk about event intelligence, these are two of the key drivers and part of the exciting projects of working with our customer base, because we look at all the new technologies coming into play from hypervisor layer. We might be looking at technologies like, say, OpenShift, which brings in complexity but allows simplicity. You look at the new cloud providers, Azure and the likes of AWS, and God forbid you register to actually their what's new feed. So when you bring all these new technologies together, yes, they enable better outcomes for the business, but this is where you need to introduce mass automation, and these are some of the more exciting projects which I like to get involved in seeing how our customers can automate, drive greater efficiencies, and then you start to introduce technologies and capabilities like self-healing, be it with Ansible Tower or be it with AWS Lambda functions. And then what's the output of this? More events, more alerts, more triggers, more data points. And that's where you look at event intelligence, and partners like PagerDuty, who we're working with very closely, is bringing all that together to understand a single outcome.
And I would add to that as well, of course automation is important, and everyone knows it's important, but the question is, why don't people do it then? Like, you know it's going to offer benefits, you know automation is important to a business, and the reason is it's often so hard to integrate these tools to provide that automation. And you really need to look at kind of best-of-breed tools that do their things well and that can automate and integrate together well to be able to achieve that. Because you want to do it, why aren't you doing it? You really need to invest in tools that do it well and can talk to each other well.
Excellent. Anybody else?
Yeah, okay, I'll add one. So, whilst working on a major banking client, we found that having a suite of tools, such as the ones here, it opens up a lot of different opportunities. So I think a lot of the conversation has been focused on IT ops, but we've also unlocked a lot of capability from like a SecOps perspective. It exposes a lot of capability in security, incident, event management scenes. And then also, I had an interesting conversation with someone in customer analytics at this major bank. And then he's asked me, with all this data, can you tell me when a client is on the banking portal and downloading lots of statements? Sure. Why do you want to know that? Any takers? So the reason is that by having a customer downloading lots of statements, it implies that they're about to leave the bank. And so we've got all this data and all these events coming through. So then we've got the IT ops stories, but then how do we deliver rich customer experiences and preempt, this person is angry with us or whatever, and actually give them follow-up calls to say, how's our service, how's it been going? And so and through this customer interaction, you deliver a tailored experience and you deliver a richer customer experience.
Excellent. That's a fantastic example. Business cases. I'm sure everybody in here has had to be part of one, write one at some point in time. I know they were a bane of my existence in the past, and they probably will be for certain times in the future. What are the three critical inclusions when putting together a business case, or what you would sort of say to the audience when trying to put together a business case for digital operations management, or to try to help deliver digital operations excellence?
Yeah, so we've done this a lot with our various customers, and so they'll often come up to us and say, there's a problem, we need to fix it. And then, when we say, it's actually going to be an investment, it's going to cost like this much, like, okay. So business cases for this type of thing is often very counterintuitive, because normally doing business cases for revenue generation, that stuff is easy. But then how do you quantify the effect of an incident? I think some of the notes, some of the points that were raised during the keynote, you can go back to your organizations, around I think it was it 500K per 30 minutes for an incident, like that, yeah. Cool. So it's you start to try to be able to quantify these things. You also need to look at what are the key performance indicators and the key metrics that you want to be after. So for that example I had earlier, it's about customer retention, it's about customer experience, or it's about revenue, it's about uptime. You need to be able to establish what is it that you are trying to gain out of this transformation process. From there, we typically work with clients to then map out their, let's say, incident management journey. So for example, like what Abhijit was showing you guys earlier, throughout the process of an incident, how much time does it take for someone to identify? How much time does it take to route the incident to the right person, to the right resolver? How much time does it take to wrangle the right people onto a conference bridge? You start quantifying that, the 500K for 30 minutes, and you start bringing that number into, I've just spent 15 minutes trying to wrangle this person out of bed, and the dollars start to make sense. And so you know, the third thing that I'd like you guys to consider is, you know, there's always an option, like for these business cases, there's always an option of doing nothing. So you also have to think about what is the cost to you and your business of doing nothing. And so, you know, there are quantifiable business costs in terms of dollars, lost revenue, but then there's also stuff like, you know, employee satisfaction. You know, people leaving because their work-life balances are hurt. Customer dissatisfaction. These are sort of less quantifiable things that you should take note of as well as you build up this business case.
And also I find just to keep things really simple is helpful. So attempting to determine a business case or business value, it's important to remember why initially. So often the three key ones when engaging with a customer in a proof of concept or proof of value would be, first of all, determining the business impact of production incidents, the impact and frequency and severity of production incidents, and then determining how, as a vendor, you can help reduce the mean time to identify incidents in production, so how quickly you're able to notify the right person, and then how quickly that problem can be resolved or mitigated. So that one we refer to as mean time to resolve. Those are the three most important issues to focus on initially.
So, look, the reality is that the world we're always on now. Customers are always connected. You know, Jim from Ladbrokes was, you know, again, he was going through what does it actually cost when they're down, and you know, there's quite a bit of competition out there, let's say, in the gambling space. So, if you were to sort of look at, you know, what would you say would be the challenges that organizations, you know, particularly in this always-on connected world, you know, where customers have the ability to flip and go somewhere else? What are the challenges that you see in terms of them trying to compete and trying to have that unfair advantage in business when it comes to their customer experience or the digital services they provide?
I might start there. So the main one that we're seeing, especially as organizations recognize that they need to deliver better customer experiences faster, and their competition are also doing the same thing, is addressing complexity in the tech stack. So looking at the evolution of an application, what that looks like, and the fact that we're now using microservices, containers, orchestration tools, we're running cloud infrastructure, we're running automation. All of these things are fantastic, although they actually create a lot of moving parts and a lot more potential for issues to be a lot more complex to resolve. And so what I'm seeing is all of the monitoring tools are now becoming a data analytics discipline. So like I said earlier, you're taking all of that telemetry that your modern applications are emitting from each and every service across the stack. And it's about doing something with it that's actionable and meaningful is the key.
I'm going to jump into the one. So it's interesting, right? You know, part of the point you said there is about all these new data sets coming from all these disparate systems or potentially monitoring solutions. And it's one of the biggest challenges that our customers come to us with, saying, look, how do we correlate all this together? How do we, for one, correlate, but two, how do we map? How do we understand all the dependencies of an application, or when a user of today coming from an IoT device or a mobile app or a desktop, when they click here, what services they're touching on, what hypervisor, to what cloud provider at that time based on the commercial arrangement. And this is what we find with a lot of our customers in using our technology to essentially map and understand those services as they're changing for a modern environment. And it's quite interesting in the way that you can look at customers of ours who spoke at our recent forum event, Transurban, also going through part of this digital transformation, and I would somewhat call maybe a traditional organisation adapting to the new world, bringing new technologies and keeping on the innovative edge. Or you could look at some of the juggernauts, let's say SAP. They spoke at our Barcelona event, and as it stands today, they're monitoring 20,180 applications across 120,000 servers sitting on a cloud foundry hypervisor. So if you can imagine all the shifting parts moving, to wind that back and correlate it back to how the end users are performing at a global level, it's just immense, especially in today's complexity, right? Excellent.
DevOps is 10 this year. Most people know that. It's about 10 years old. So, so obviously as it's starting to grow up, and we're actually seeing DevOps move into different. Last time many of you have heard of Maddie Stratton. If you haven't, he has a podcast, Arrested DevOps. Him and Sherry Majors are both going to be speaking at our upcoming PagerDuty Summit. I think some of the team have spoken about. So definitely look to attend that. I highly recommend it. Some of this team will be there, represented by some of these vendors. When I was speaking with Matty last time he was out, we were sort of talking about the evolution of DevOps, or the evolution of DevOps practices into what we do. You know, I mentioned earlier, you know, BizOps, SecOps, take anything, just put ops on the end of it. But you know, with DevOps sort of becoming 10 this year, where do you see that going? Where do you see it going to in terms of helping to accelerate? And I like to use the term digital evolution, because when we have transformation taking place all the time, quite regularly, I sort of perceive that as evolution, or at least as I understood it to be defined. Where do you see DevOps taking these digital transformation initiatives and potentially digital evolution in the future?
I might jump in there. So on that one, actually, we forgot Mere Ops. But you know, when you look at so DevOps, right? Yeah, I think it's an organic thing that's come to be. Some say necessary evil, but it's a natural evolution of the way the IT markets, and companies have to implement that as a route to market. But I'm actually excited for more the DevOps, let's call it version 2, where you're really starting to accelerate technology and use it to the benefit of the end user, right? So you look at more self-healing type technologies, start looking at more of those innovative new capabilities that come into play. You know, you look at end user devices today, you've got Apple Watches, or you've got your Alexas, but actually using them through the way that you run an organization, or run the way that you might deliver back to the end user. I think that's really exciting stuff that's going to coming out with the V2.
Yeah, also similar to the example that I brought up earlier. So you know, with DevOps, you know, there's the concept of you build it, you own it, right? I think the definition of it also needs to be updated a little bit. So right now, as I see it, it means I build a piece of software, I own the piece of software, and I'm responsible for uptime. I think this needs to be expanded towards the product and also to the customer experience. So you know, you see a lot of product teams that are going through this phase of it's not just about software delivery. It's about enriching the customer experience and being able to experiment, because that's what digital transformation is, right? You provide the ability to experiment and to deliver a customer experience, be able to test and verify that it works or it doesn't work, and pivot as a result. So then it's about getting the right signals, and like a lot of these tools actually give you that. So I think Abhijit was showing me like the marketing ops as an example, right? That, like, it's actually quite compelling that you can actually use stuff like SumoLogic or PagerDuty to actually get marketing or product level insights to your product. So this is sort of the next evolution, because typically this has sort of come through via dev teams or via ops teams, but the business or marketing or product, they don't really know about the power and that's harnessed through these tools. So I think that's the next step in the DevOps journey, to actually bring business, marketing, product, finance into this picture.
And that's kind of interesting. Coming from an IT service management vendor, we've got a slightly different dynamic with DevOps. Traditionally they have not been particularly cohesive technologies. IT service management spent a long time trying to, in some ways, stop DevOps. The two did not marry. Like, IT service management is about control, managing the environment, and having things in a very specific process, which is kind of the antithesis of DevOps, which is speed, trying to get things out there quickly. And they spent a long time, probably 10 years ago, apparently DevOps is, trying to manage that. And then it went through its second iteration of that relationships, where they tried to work out how they could marry the two together. And a lot of that was focused on how you could maybe fix up your change management processes and get them to work together nicely, manage your bimodal IT to have one go at great speed and the other go at a very managed speed as different areas of the organisation work quicker. And what we're finding now is kind of the third phase of that, or the third iteration, where IT service management has really kind of caught up to the modern day thinking and are really providing benefits to DevOps. And that's not focused on the traditional change management or CDB processes, but really providing automation around your incident and problem response processes. So you can really let DevOps do what they do well, which is speed to market and being able to do things quickly and failing fast, and providing all the underpinning services to be able to help them when they do fail, to fix it up quickly, get the right messaging to the right people, and even identify exactly which developer is responsible for the specific issue that was developed through DevOps and get it resolved in the quickest period of time possible. And that's really how we're helping our customers deliver value on their DevOps teams.
Fantastic. Well, that's certainly been an enlightening discussion. Hopefully that was valuable for the teams here. I'd like to thank all of our panelists as well as all the speakers that we've actually had today. I'm going to welcome Carrie Mott back up on the stage to give us the closing thoughts, and then we'd love to have you join us as well as our panelists to have a bit more of a chat over drinks here very shortly.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Kris. Great job, really good insights. And I think that's been the common theme today, and really what we hope to achieve when we set out and built out our PagerDuty Connect series was to provide different perspectives on achieving the same goal, which is exceptional digital services to all of your customers, both internal and external. I hope we've done that today. I hope we've given you a little bit of a broader perspective as to what some of our customers, partners, and the PagerDuty product team indeed are doing to improve how we deliver those services moving forward. Thank you for your valuable time. We are incredibly appreciative of it. We know how incredibly valuable it is. I just wanted to shout out one more quick thank you to the speakers today for making it all possible. It was really the brainchild of obviously our global team, but all of the regional customers have really got involved and participated, and it's so incredibly generous of you to share, and very DevOps minded to share your learnings and insights with our community here today. Also, of course, thank you to our sponsors, who it sounds like might be getting ready for a drink outside, which is awesome, because it's something that only the Australians know how to do well. I just wanted to round off by two things, which is this is really the beginning of our ongoing relationship, or a new touch point in our relationship. PagerDuty's actually launched a DevOps online community which has an amazing library of incident response best practices, commentary from our global customers of 10,000 plus, and all of their learning. So take advantage of it. Jump onto the PagerDuty website, check out the community link, get involved. It's your community, and we certainly want to help you in all of your efforts within your business, within your unique businesses. You can see there in a little viewer page. Last but not least, this forum is about you. And next year we'll run another forum in a very similar vein. But what we'd like to do is make sure that we're delivering the best content, the best experience as to what you need in your businesses to be successful. So we are giving away apparently wireless headphones from Beats Solo 3, hilarious price, always cracks me up as a marketer. I think they're worth 400 Australian dollars, which is what, about 200 US dollars right now. But if you fill out the forms that are on your chairs, those put you in the drawer, and we will draw the headsets just outside as you're having a drink and a chat and demo with some of our incredibly valuable partners and team. So with that, thank you very much for your time, and hope to see you outside having a drink and a bite to eat.